Hello everyone, this is Bradley. Welcome to the sixth episode of the beginning series on geometry nodes. I hope you've watched the previous episodes so that your life today will be much easier. In fact, today this is the episode to conclude our previous discussions about attributes. Then we're going to have some quite different discussions about socket color and socket shape until we finally touch on instancing in geometry nodes. As always, today's demonstration file will be provided for free from the link in the description if you want to test by yourself. In the last episode, we talked about some common sampling nodes such as sample index, sample nearest, and the sample nearest surface. It's like asking for other people's birth dates. You have different methods like text messages, phone calls, email, just like we have different nodes. For all sampling nodes, you can expect about 3 components required for the grammar of how our nodes will work. We need a geometry, target values, and the context of the method, like phone number, email address, etc. Sample index is a very typical example that you can see 3 components in all of its 3 sockets. We also discussed the morphing, which is just the mixed position with a sampled position. Simply by playing the mix factor from 1 to 0, our cube transforms itself to a cone. One thing I forgot to mention is that there is a convenient shortcut to swap values. Sometimes your links in these nodes cross in an ugly way. If you swap the links manually, it's troublesome, as one will be disconnected and you have to reconnect it. But you can hold Alt when swapping, so the other one will replace the original socket. This can work in various situations for links. For example, it can also swap if the target node is totally different. And at the end of last tutorial, I discussed other variations, including the RayCast node, which is today's topic. The RayCast node is a quite large node, but it still shows the components we just discussed. We have a geometry, we have target values, and we have many contexts for ray projection. If you look at the output, we also have additional sockets like position and normal. They are sampled and their redundant inputs are not shown. The overall idea of this node is that it's like your eyes or your camera. You visualize information where you need it, assuming you have a bullet flying in a direction, and the bullet needs to know if it will hit something. Then, RayCast will be the bullet's vision. So we need to start with the bullet's own position, look in a direction, and the bullet's vision may be far-sighted or near-sighted depending on your settings. And you get answers like whether the bullets will hit the collider, where it will hit, what the surface angle of hit will be, and how much distance is left before hitting it. Given this information, you can effectively detect collisions and to decide how a bullet should behave. Like, is it going to collide now, or how it will deflect after the impact? As a sampling node, for convenience of usage, the node pre-prepared this commonly required information, like is hit position, hit normal, and calculated the distance for you. The distance here itself is not a sampled attribute. It's just a simple mass of hit position to distance with the current position. This is just an example of advanced usage. We are not going to discuss how to implement it exactly, as it's beyond the scope of a beginner series, especially since at this stage we haven't covered all the tools required for this kind of task. Overall, the RayCast node is a powerful sampling node, not because it contains many outputs, since with other sampling nodes, you can also duplicate them multiple times to sample position, normal, calculated distance, and so on. It's powerful because the method itself behaves like vision. You can intentionally decide the direction you need to look at. In contrast, other classical nodes are less free to control. On the other hand, you have to use your own logic and knowledge to define its direction most of the time, whether it should be a simple value like the default, an attribute, or some complex math involving attributes. In our bullet example, we have to use the velocity of the bullet so we know where it's heading. The velocity could be an attribute from a particle system, or something you calculate yourself with a simple math. Here, I have an example to compare it with other sampling methods we discussed. I have an elevated mesh that has a noise texture stored as a color attribute on it to show in the material. On the bottom plane, I want to get the same color from this elevated plane. If I use sample nearest surface, every point will get its nearest value from our sample mesh. So the entire plane becomes colorful, and the border is quite ugly. This will also be true for sample nearest. However, using RayCast, we can simply get what we want, because as we shoot rays upwards for sampling, these border areas don't hit the colorful plane, and thus they cannot sample any color data from it. While this is a simple example, and we definitely have ways to improve the result of sample nearest surface in some cases, I want you to be aware that we have different tools, each with their own pros and cons, and it's the user's responsibility to choose the best tool for the task. In this case, RayCast seems simple and effective for getting the job done. Although we are not going to discuss advanced real-world use cases, based on what you've learned in this beginner series, you should be able to imagine and understand the basic usage of the RayCast node and its variations. A side note is that here we didn't use most of the outputs and inputs, and this node really looks quite huge and even disturbing. In this case, sometimes I hit Ctrl+H to hide unconnected sockets to make it small, and you can Ctrl+H to unhide. This shortcut definitely has some downside, but it's the one provided by Blender by default for this kind of task for the moment. Also, I've mentioned in the first episode about these non-socket node options, which you can also hide using shortcuts or not. So never be surprised with the node looking different from yours. It can be due to Blender developments or some intentional change for node tree maintenance. If you can figure it out by yourself, it's great. But if you aren't sure what a node is, a possible way is to look for its node names, which I doubt users will really change. Users usually change the labels without changing the real name of the node. At last, the reason I chose this early episode to discuss this node is because I want to discuss a mistake that even advanced users or even developers sometimes fall into. Here I have a similar example as before, involving the grid and an elevated mesh circle. I'm looking upwards to project my grid onto the mesh circle for sampling. Then using the set position to apply the result, you will see it produces a strange result. This is because many points on the grid are not hitting anything, so they cannot determine a hit position. They return 0 at the word origin. I want to isolate the hitting part. So at first, it may seem easy. People may try to use separate geometry to isolate only parts that hit. But the result here is incorrect. It doesn't work as some people may expect to remove the bottom regions. So this is a kind of test for you. The file is available in the description. You should try to investigate and understand the reason, and solve this problem by yourself. This is just a node tree of just 5 nodes, and it's supposed to be simple. It's also not just about solving it. You should also be able to explain the issue and why your solution works. Keep in mind, there are multiple solutions, most of which are explained in the previous episodes. That's why I've provided multiple copies of the same node tree. Feel free to experiment with different approaches. I will wait for half a minute so you can pause and think about it in your file. It's not recommended, but you can use the timestamp to skip ahead to the explanation. So here I'm back. There are many ways to solve this problem. One of the simplest way is to move separate geometry before set position. Then the problem disappears. The question is why? You may notice our RayCast outputs a dashed link. This means it's using a field. So where does this field come from? We have two hidden inputs in the RayCast node. One is used for sampling, and the other is position, which is a field based on the position attribute. Of course, this is because our ray is projected from our geometry's position toward the target. So the source position is the implicit attribute socket we're looking for. We know this position input doesn't contain any actual data in the dashed link. The real data is stored within the geometry socket. Due to our set position process, we have changed that data. While it looks like one node, but two links are based on completely different contexts, and their outputs are not anywhere relevant to each other. Remember the example in episode 4, where I showed a single position node feeding into two different set position nodes. Although we only have a single position node, the cube remains a cube, and the cone remains a cone. What we encounter here is a different variations of the same idea. Instead of different geometry, we now have the same geometry at the different stages. Because of set position, the geometry has been changed. So the position values are different before and after. As a result, although it looks like we're running the same RayCast node, we're actually evaluating twice on different geometry states. The reason our solution works by moving separate geometry earlier is that although we separate the geometry, we do not change the position. RayCast is still evaluated twice, but the identical position leads to visually identical results for two evaluations. Here I want to remind you that node order can matter. Even in modifier system, the cube with bevel before subdivision is totally different from the one with bevel after subdivision. On the other hand, node order is not always that strict. For example, in such a long node chain, I have many different operations like transform geometry, delete geometry, and set position with normal. Set material can be placed almost anywhere and still work as I change material from red to green or green to red. Of course, for convention and convenience, I prefer to put it as downstream as possible, like the end of node tree. This is similar to language. A sentence like, I don't know what he's doing, and what he's doing, I don't know, have different order and structures, but both are understandable. However, if you say, what is he, I don't know, doing, it just sounds wrong. The point is, these rules aren't there to punish you. They exist so that what you build makes sense. You need to structure things clearly so the computer can understand your intention. If you just connect things randomly without understanding, the system cannot figure out what you want. So going back to our original question, what if we want the correct result without changing the node order? You can make sure both links are using the same position before it's modified. This is where we can use capture attribute. One way is to capture the position before the set position and use it for RayCast. In this case, two links are evaluating the same initial position to get a seemingly ideal result. But the RayCast is still evaluated twice, like duplicating the entire node. So we can improve further by capturing the RayCast result itself. This way, it's evaluated only once at this capture attribute step. Here, we can test their performance by subdivide our grid further to 5000 by 5000. You can see our one evaluation capture takes about 328 milliseconds, and two evaluation capture takes 427 milliseconds. It's about more than 20% of performance differences. There are even more ways to solve this problem, such as using store-named attributes. However, at the moment of recording, it can only store one value at a time, so you do not get the same performance benefit as capturing multiple outputs. This example was intentionally made complex to demonstrate multiple solution paths. In real life, it would be easier to simply pick at the value using the viewer, and you should immediately notice that the output changes because your geometry has been modified. However, this is also a real-world issue and a very common mistake people make with the RayCast node. There are multiple bug reports regarding these characteristics. Users and even developers can misunderstand the cause at the first glance. So this is a good opportunity to reinforce your understanding of attributes and fields. On the other hand, this example also shows how you can optimize your node tree using capture attributes, even if the final result is the same. In practice, we are often working on projects and threatened by the deadline, and I rarely optimize or organize my node trees unless there is a serious performance issue. Nevertheless, it's good to keep this in mind, especially since hardware can be expensive in the AI era. This concludes today's tutorial and the general section on attributes and fields. Starting from the next episode, we will talk about socket colors and shapes, which are related but very different topics. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will probably see you next time. Bye bye.